Jake Paul defeats Julio Cesar Chavez JRB in his biggest victory yet. A deep dive into the man behind the glovist. Date was June 28, 2025, a night that boxing fans won't soon forget. Jake Paul, the internet's self-proclaimed problem child, stepped into the ring against former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez JRB in what was widely considered the most significant challenge of his boxing career. Many had doubts, many had jokes, but by the time the final bell rang, there were no more questions. Jake Paul had not only survived, he had convincingly won. Yes, you read that right. Jake Paul beat Chavez Jr. The victory was more than just another stat on his growing resume. It was a moment that marked a shift in how the world sees Jake Paul, not just a viral sensation or turned fighter, but as a legitimate boxer who's earned the right to be taken seriously. But before we get into the fight itself, it's worth understanding how we got here, because Jake Paul's path to this moment wasn't built in a boxing gym. It was built on controversy, reinvention, and an uncanny ability to turn criticism into currency. From Vine to victory, Jake Paul didn't come out of the amateur boxing scene or climb through the traditional ranks of the sport. His rise began on Vine, the 6-second video app that launched countless internet careers. Jake stood out quickly, energetic, loud, and always pushing boundaries. His videos got millions of views. Then came YouTube, where the format got longer, the stunts got crazier, and the following exploded. He became the kind of online personality who was impossible to ignore. His content blended humor, mayhem, and controversy, with prank videos and feuds that earned him millions of fans and just as many critics. In 2017, Paul joined the Disney Channel show Bizaardvark, playing a goofy internet star. But off-screen, life was much more chaotic. That same year, a local Los Angeles news station aired a segment featuring Paul's neighbors, who were fed up with his wild antics. They complained of loud parties, dangerous stunts, and floods of fans crowding the streets. After Paul leaked his own address, things spiraled. His Beverly Grove neighbors said the area had become a war zone. The backlash led Disney to sever ties. Soon after, the homeowner of his rented mansion sued him for $2.5 million in damages. For most, this kind of public shaming would be a career ender. But Jake Paul isn't most people. Reinvention in the ring. Instead of retreating, Paul leaned in. He embraced the chaos. He created even more outrageous content, from expensive trading card unboxings to bizarre diss tracks. He built a personal brand on being disliked. But then, in a move no one predicted, he took on a new identity. Boxer.it started as a gimmick, a celebrity boxing match here, a sparring video there. But the moment Jake Paul knocked out Nate Robinson in a viral showdown, something shifted. Suddenly, the internet star with a reputation for being a troublemaker was now training with real fighters, stepping into real gyms, and taking his new sport seriously. He beat former MMA star Ben Askren, then Tyron Woodley, not once, but twice. Then came the biggest shock of all. Paul beat Anderson Silva, a UFC legend known for his striking. At that point, even some skeptics had to admit Jake Paul could fight. In an interview with Insider journalist Alan Dawson, Paul opened what boxing meant, or music or acting. He said, "I wake up every day with this fire in my belly. That's where the passion comes from." That passion brought him to Chavez JRB, a seasoned fighter, the son of Mexican boxing royalty, and someone who had been in the ring with top-tier competition. It wasn't just another influencer fight. This was the real deal. Fight night, June 28, 2005. The build-up to the Paul vs. Chavez JRB fight was intense. Chavez JRB, despite his inconsistent career, had experience that Paul didn't. He'd fought for world titles, taken on serious contenders, and carried the weight of his father's legacy. Paul, on the other hand, entered as the underdog in the eyes of many purists. The question wasn't whether he had heart, he'd shown that, but whether he could survive 10 rounds against someone like Chavez JRB, who knew every trick in the book. As the crowd roared in anticipation, both fighters entered the ring with something to prove. From the opening bell, Paul showed no signs of nerves. He moved with confidence, used his jab smartly, and showed improved footwork. He wasn't just brawling, he was boxing. Chavez JRB had moments of success, especially in the middle rounds, but he never truly imposed himself. Paul, on the other hand, stayed composed, landed the cleaner shots, and controlled the pace. In the final round, Paul surged. He looked energized, like he wanted to close the show on a high note. The final flurry brought the crowd to its feet. When the scorecards were read, it was unanimous. Jake Paul had done it. He had defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. What this win really means, this wasn't just another win. This was a line in the sand. Until now, critics could argue that Paul was picking easy fights, taking on retired MMA stars or out-of-shape athletes. But Chavez JRB, that's a different story. Despite his ups and downs, Chavez JRB is a former world champion with a long boxing pedigree. Beating him meant something. Paul's win wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a message to the boxing world. He's not a tourist in this sport anymore. He's part of the conversation. From problem child to Prisa who is Jake Paul now? He's still brash, still unapologetic, still prone to stirring up drama and making headlines for offbeat reasons. But he's also a fighter, a real one. The journey from Vine to victory has been anything but smooth. He's been called everything, from a genius marketer to a disgrace to boxing. But he's made people care. And in sports, that matters. Over the years, Paul has made a habit of proving people wrong. When people said he'd never beat an athlete, he did. When they said he couldn't go the distance, he did. And now, when they said he couldn't beat a real boxer, he has. What comes next? Now that Jake Paul has scored his most important win yet, the question shifts, what's next? Will he pursue bigger names? Could a match with someone like Tommy Fury happen again? Is the Canelo challenge still on the table? Or will Paul take a victory lap and carefully choose his next opponent? Whatever he decides, one thing is clear. He's earned the right to make that decision on his own terms. And no longer just an influencer in gloves, Jake Paul is now a fighter with a real resume. He's walked into the fire, taken punches, and come out the other side not just intact but stronger. His win over Chavez JRB may not win over every critic. Some will always see him as the YouTuber who got lucky. But for anyone paying attention, that narrative no longer holds up. Jake Paul has earned his respect the hard way. Final bell June 28, 2025 might be remembered as the night the boxing world shifted. Not because a new champion was crowned, but because an unlikely challenger finally became undeniable. Jake Paul didn't just beat a former champion. He beat expectations, beat doubts, and beat the storyline that said he didn't belong. And now, with his gloves raised and the critics silenced at least for a moment, he's no longer just the problem child. He's a problem for anyone standing across the ring. The polarizing figure. Why Jake Paul keeps winning, even when he's had a Jake Paul has always thrived in the space between love and hate. It's rare to find someone who can make so many people feel so strongly one way or the other. But this ability to stir emotions is part of why he remains one of the most captivating figures in sports and entertainment. In a world where influencers and celebrities are often criticized for lacking substance, Paul has carved out a niche where controversy isn't just accepted, it's celebrated. His persona as the problem child isn't just a nickname. It's a reflection of how he views his role in the spotlight. Paul doesn't just want to be liked, he wants to be talked about. And whether it's for his wild antics on YouTube or his brash behavior outside the ring, Jake has mastered the art of making sure everyone knows his name. Even as he was mocked for his early attempts at boxing, Paul used those criticisms to fuel his training. Critics were quick to dismiss him as a YouTuber playing at being a boxer. But with every win, they were forced to eat their words. And now, after defeating a former world champion like Chavez JRB, Paul's place in the boxing world is more secure than ever. His critics might not have been silenced completely, but they've had to acknowledge that he's a legitimate force in the sport. For someone who built his career on defying expectations, that's a huge win not just for him, but for the sport as a whole, as it brings a new audience to boxing.